All right. Hello, everybody. Anybody out there in TV land? Thank you for joining me on Monday, Monday night, Monday evening live stream, art and chat. We are working on a watercolor painting that we're going to finish the watercolor portions of tonight, and then we'll take it to a level of mixed media, starting to add some things on there with other stuff, either acrylic paint and collage, kind of the door's wide open. So I tonight am working on what I started last week was this figure. I just had a sketch to begin with, and I laid in these lower layers of paint. And today I'll do at least one more layer on her, add some more refinement to her face, and then keep moving along. And I'm going to add a clip on here because I'm working on a watercolor block, but over time, if you're doing something that you're not just finishing all in one sitting, it can start to peel up in the corner. So I just keep some of these handy dandy alligator clips nearby. Just pop that right on there to kind of keep it in place. So that's a very handy little pointer. I also generally start with like a little plasticky pipette, and I grab some water from my water cup and kind of pre-moisten my pans a little bit. That just makes working a little easier. So give them, just a little bit of time to absorb some of that water. And it was my intention to do that a few minutes before I started streaming, but I forgot because I forget everything. And I have to admit I'm extremely tired today. I don't know if it's something to do with the world in general or just me or whatever it is, but yeah, man, tired. So I think when I start this, I'm going to first do an initial wash over the whole body, then I can tighten in my shot from this camera onto the face so you can really see what I'm doing in there. You see what I'm doing for adding detail work. All right, so shall we get started? I'm going to add a cooler layer, although I did make one adjustment at the end of the last stream where I added some warmer spots where I needed them. And the one place where I don't have that is in the hand. So I think I'll do that super fast here. Just add some of the warmer color to make it look attached before I move on to the rest. And I'm working my way down on her. So by the time I get to the hand to add shadows, that should be dry and ready to go. And I have a few brushes. I used this flathead brush quite a bit. It's number 10 initially for a lot of the body layers. It's a nice wide brush for that. And I have 2 different sizes of round brushes that I'll be using otherwise mostly today. This one I think is a 8, I think. It's all rubbed off, whatever was on here. Yeah. And I have a 6, but this one's really nice because I can get a very fine point with it without having to go down to itty bitty brushes. This one will just do the job. So Monday evening, early evening, I guess. I've been so off. I don't know why. Just must be an offshoot of being tired. It's a pretty busy weekend. Mother's Day, of course, so I hope anyone out there had a very nice Mother's Day. And let me see here. I'm going to mix up a cooler color for my shadow wash, where I'm going to incorporate some kind of bluey violet tones into that. Since I used yellow as an underpainting, anything that I do with just a little blue in it will probably end up looking more green, which is okay for some skin tone. I have a little bit of that going on here. There is a lot of green in skin tone typically. So not a problem there, but I want to control it a little bit and not just go full on green for all of the shadows. So just mixing some colors in my pan here. All right, I think audio seems all right. Everything good? Y'all let me know if anything is off. I keep an eye on the chat over here on my iPad. So if you can't hear me, you can't see something, I will try to keep an eye to that. And also not stand too much right in front of the picture, in front of the paint, in front of the camera. All right, let me see here. Let's just get in there. Start adding, oh, too watery, okay. Let me add more pigment to my water here. That showed up like a whole lot of nothing. And while I do work in a lot of lighter layers generally, I still need them to be, you know, effective and doing something when they meet my canvas paper, whatever you want to call it. Just technical differentiations. So yeah, this is shadow, main shadow layer probably. I'm not going to do too much in the face at this point, just like the main washes, because I'll go back in and like really get a little more detail in her. It's quite small area for her face, so it's not going to be necessarily as detailed as some of my like portraits and things, but still want her to look real, more or less. And I love how statuesque this pose is on her. She seems very confident. And I like that. I like that for this. That's why I chose her. This particular reference. All right, I'm just kind of moving through. Let the brush do a lot of the work there. And I'm working upright so that it's easy to film. Although I recognize that that's not necessarily the ideal way to work with watercolor, depending on the way that what you're trying to achieve. So I kind of watch for where the water starts to pool, the color there. And sometimes I like those. I like kind of things that just happen, like the paint to be allowed to do what paint will do. Just depends on the spot and the area. Okay. I'm not going too realistic with the face to my reference. I have a few reasons for doing that. One is just to make it a little bit more unique and painterly. Another reason is, I changed it a lot, the reference a lot, by simply having her be nude for this picture, because that's like a part of my current body of work. It's a lot about vulnerability and, the things that make us outside of the way that we dress ourselves or present ourselves to the world, potentially. So none of that kind of detail to muddy anything. I'm not gonna let a drop happen here by just filling it up with water until it breaks and drips coming down from her hair. Come on. Let the weight of the water break the tension. Okay. I like that. Some of that happened in the background. So just a little consistency kind of happening there. All right, continuing. I'm not very into super detailed controlling the paint for watercolor. I just think it's so much more interesting to let it have its way. Because it is kind of a crazy medium sometimes. Some people really can master it in that sense and make incredibly photorealistic stuff out of watercolor, but that's not what I'm going for, so I'm not too worried about it. But I do play around from time to time with different approaches to see what I can learn from them. And if you're not careful, you might learn something new every day. Now I'm going to switch to my smaller brush for the hands. And one more wash here. For the hand, and then I'll probably go back to the bigger brush to do a little bit more on the surface that she's sitting on, which is kind of a soft fabric covered something or another. Okay, let me adjust this so we can see what's going on. I might need to add a little bit more pigment again, but I think I might be able to get through this layer first. I've been reading some about how both doing art and looking at art, both, really healthy for mental health. And there's quite a bit of actual science to back that up. And it's probably why it is used so openly for art therapy sessions. But both doing and looking at art has therapeutic properties. It can help to relieve stress and it actually can help with depression. increase your creativity, dopamine levels, and something else. I keep losing my train of thought because I'm trying to think about what I'm doing as I'm talking. But yeah, it's used to treat, pretty effectively to treat trauma. Like as a way to help process trauma. Yeah, it's really genuinely good for you. All right, just a couple more details. Finer ones here. Okay, now I'm going to switch back to my larger brush in a second here. And I'm going to use a slightly different shade here for the background fabric because I don't want it to blend into her skin tones. So it's kind of a pinkish tone for the fabric. We're going to lean into our cool reds a little more heavily. At the end of last week's last painting session, I started to get this bullseye thing happening there, so I did my best to kind of pull that out, but we're also just going to simply cover it up too. Just need some tonal separation between her hand and her body and the fabric. Painting fabric is not my, it's not something that I do a ton of. I probably should do more practicing on it. Keep thinking about going to some live sessions, live figure drawing sessions. And I haven't yet. I actually went to show up to one a while ago. It was one of those, it was on like Meetup or something, trying to look for things like that happening in the area. And I drove to where it was, and it was like the creepiest house, which I didn't realize it was just going to be like somebody's house when I first was like, yeah, I'm going to try to check this out. And the vibes were very wrong. And I did not even get out of my car. Just like drove all the way there. Nope. Whole lot of just nope. Definitely not doing that. So I need to find somewhere else to do that feels comfortable, let's say. Okay. Super overexposed on the face there. Let me try zooming in a little bit. Let me adjust my camera. I'm gonna adjust it up a little. And then I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. Oh. Okay, a little more up. And it looks like on this lens, that's as close as I can get, but I think that does pretty well. Maybe I'll center it a little bit more. There we go. Hopefully that looks okay, and you can see what's happening. All right, my spring allergies are something today. And I got the window open because it's really, oh, that's not the brush I'm at. I have the window open because it's super nice out. But I think I am paying a price in terms of it's making my nose run. It's just that time of the year. Okay. So now I can get into a little bit more detail on the face. Now I'm first going to start with a bit of a pinkish peach tone. For things like the lips, nose, maybe a little bit on the cheeks. And I had done one layer with some of that last time, but I could use a little bit more. So now I'm going to try to get in here and really define some of the shadows and things on her face. I'm also looking at, I do have the printout of a reference nearby, but I'm not strictly following that, but just to get the idea of where shadows and highlights are. Already I'm happier with her face than just a moment ago. And I'm not going to get into too much detail or contrast in the irises. That's kind of the stylistic choice for the series of paintings I'm doing. There's another point about like art being good for you. Like, I think I have always, to some extent, used art without realizing I was doing it as a way to process difficult things, events, emotions. Like, in hindsight, it's much more obvious. Looking at my work from when I was going through different, very difficult times, perhaps, and how very obvious it seems now looking back. So there's a lot of that. I mean, it's hard to separate who you are to what you're saying in your artwork. Those things are going to always have a little bit of inextricable connection. But I was thinking about how, what about controlling that language a little bit more? Like, what if instead of painting what is happening in my mind, what if instead I started painting what I would like to be happening? Like how I want to feel, how I want to observe the world. And that is a very interesting thought to me, and something I definitely want to pursue more. Words. All right, let me think. Trying to decide if I want to add or do anything else to the face. I think I'll at least let this dry. And I'm going to add a little bit of the pink too to the hands, because our fingers tend to be a little redder than maybe our arms and things can be, unless you're really cold, I guess. It just goes white. Oh, let me zoom out so you can see everything if I go down that way. All right, and just my camera. Hold on, guys. All right. There we are. Let's see everything for the moment. And I need a little bit of my warm color again. Just too light, too highlighted compared to everything else here. Okay. So I think that's a good place to leave the body for now, while it gets really properly dry, especially the face. And start working on some other elements. So one of the thoughts I have here, or part of what I'm thinking here, is that it's going to be touching on, this is about personal space. This piece, it's about like claiming personal space, whether that's your boundaries or taking the space that you should be able to take. So I'm going to use different visual cues to reference those types of things. I think I have a little drawing here that I'm going to use a paint pen on, that's like a simplified tiger head, because cats are very much territorial. They maintain their territories, they police them, they keep them. And that will be the first imagery, and over time, as I add more layers, parts of them will probably get a little bit covered, but it'll still be there, the idea. So we're just gonna use a black marker. It's a Posca paint pen, and draw that in. I let the eyes get or the ears get a little more pointed than they probably would actually be, but it works. This is not like a photorealistic kitty. Speaking of, I took my cat to the vet today. He's been having some separation anxiety issues. So I'm trying to get that under control his anxiety, and try to keep him happy and healthy. Those little critters. So good fun time for him, and maybe his tiring day is snoozing hard at the moment. I also keep doing this thing where I go to scan stuff in my scanner, some imagery, And then I remember that a few days ago my scanner just died. I can't do that. So I'm gonna have to be just using one of my cameras, the one that I have here that you guys are watching me paint with. This camera is my nice DSLR, so I can set up and do a shoot to capture them, which is totally acceptable and good quality, but it's just as more steps. Get the lighting right and make sure that all my settings are correct and all those types of things. So that'll be a thing that I will have to be dealing with. And I've looked into replacing that scanner. Was so old. It had to have been like 12 or 13, maybe 15 years old even. And when I started looking online at like, oh, what do we recommend for an artist scanner? And it's my exact scanner except one model version later. And I'm like, my scanner has got to be nearly 15 years old. How is this possible? But that's it. Like the newest version of that scanner, the Epson Perfection V600 versus the 500 that I had, came out in 2009. That was the last time that they put out a scanner for artists. And it's still over $300. I don't know. Seems goofy to me. But what do I know? Yeah, so needless to say, I'm not buying a scanner at the moment. We're gonna do without for now. Some stylized stripes, I guess. Yeah, eyes are a little wonky maybe. That's alright. Give them so much bigger pupils perhaps. For now. Like I said, some of this will be layered over. I like to combine some graphical elements with like something that's softer and more rendered. So a bit of a balance. All right. I think that will do for or the cat, perhaps. Sure, we'll go with that for now. Yeah. I'm not great at circles. It's fine. I never, ever, ever go for perfection. So there's that. Okay, this will dry pretty quickly. It's probably pretty much, yeah, it's pretty much almost dry already. That's one of the nice things about these. I mean, that is the good and the bad thing with acrylic paint, I suppose. Fast and slow and, yeah, everything. You gotta weigh the pros and the cons of, I suppose. So, next, I'm going to reach through some wires crossing my room for a second. Grab a palette knife and some paint. And if I can open this, quinacridone red. There we go. Put a little bit of paint on with my palette knife. Start filling some of the, we're just going to begin. Start going crazy. Start putting down some of these layers. And it will serve to create some both some separation between the background, so to speak, and the figure, as well as really make the figure actually stand out a little bit more, because that will become chaotic, but it will be a framing element. And this particular paint that I've chosen is very transparent. So there will be a lot more layers built up on top of that too. So my cat actually has to go back in to the doctor in like a month for a dental cleaning. That's like surgery in pet world. Ay, crazy. But I know that he would need it. I knew that he would need it for a while. Because when we first adopted him, he had a lot of gingivitis and some teeth issues when he was a kitten. So we've kind of been expecting that day to come. But yeah, just another thing. Because my cat's not stressed out enough as it is, apparently. All right. I recognize that this looks silly right now. Just got to trust the process. Trust the process. Okay. Things will look weird for a while when I first start this whole thing. It'll probably look like I'm making mistakes and I'm doing things that you're going to be like, why would you do that? But in the end, it should make sense. Now, of course, there's always the possibility that things could not work out, right? That happens. That definitely is always a possibility, and that can always happen. But it's okay. Because it's just part of the creative process. My store brand seltzer water, being fancy. Okay. Now let me think. I have an image in mind for my bin of pre-cut stuff. Ooh, I know one of the things I want to add. Another very graphical element. It's going to be pretty big. Okay, so this is some of a painting that I did a while ago. This is a watercolor study, I guess. There's some mushrooms, very simple. And I was thinking to cut these out and include them in this piece because these are a mushroom that have a natural defense. They are known to be quite toxic. And that feels like it fits for something that is going to, protect itself and its space. So, where are my scissors? Pardon me while I get in behind my camera. Grab my tiny little scissors. So, cut these out and see if they work. If they don't, that's fine. I will certainly find a place for them somewhere or another. So maybe they will, maybe they won't, but we'll try it out. Try it out and see. I need to do more of this kind of thing, like just paint some elements up and just have them available for other pieces that I work on. Just ideas for things that can be incorporated that, I don't always know exactly what I'm going to do, but sometimes there's repeating themes that come up in the work in my work, and then visuals that can go along with those. So, like things that can be symbols or analogy, you know, yeah, symbolism, like metaphors. A lot of that is what's generally going on through my head. Let me just check, make sure everything's good here. Okay. All right. Just cutting. This is the most difficult part, this like root? Is that a root? Is that what, do watermelons? Mushrooms. Do mushrooms have roots? Man, I got some cross wires today. Watermelons. Wow. It's just a little, you know, preview of what happens in my mind every day. It's just chaos. And nothing makes sense. So, just a little madness. All I can do is laugh at it, because what else can I do? This is on a pretty heavy watercolor paper too, so it's sort of a little effort to get it cut out, but it would also probably make for a very nice collaging element because it's stiff and can handle some abuse and some adhesive, some heavy adhesives. And I thought for about a moment before I started streaming of, instead of painting him in, of maybe using a transfer print. And I do think I might use, I don't know, it's not going to be that element, but I haven't used transfer print on my last couple pieces. I always enjoy it, so I might get something going there, come up with something. So that's, I will think on that. And if I have my act together, I will get it set and in place maybe on Wednesday, because I will stream again next time on Thursday morning. So if I put it on there on Wednesday during my Thursday stream, I can do the reveal, which is always the fun part, assuming that it, you know, worked well enough. That just requires a little bit of planning on my part. And I should be able to make it happen. Should. All right. One hunk of paper down. Although I didn't quite get this curve right. Even though this part might get cut off ultimately a little bit. I'm kind of thinking maybe over here-ish. I'll see better when I cut it away, but yeah, that's what's happening in my head, so we'll see. Let me just finish getting all these bits out. I'm coming along. The faster part now. Just curves. Oh, and somehow got wet paint all over the back of it, because that's how this goes. Messy. I'm not a detail-oriented person. I try. I do. But, you know, sometimes you just gotta be honest with yourself and work with what you got. Alright, another piece gone. Didn't quite nail that curve. Hold on. Nope, still not there. Okay. Just the last bits here. Let me take this off too. All right, just this little section. I call those little bits like skirts. Looks like a skirt. Feels like it should be called skirt. Why can't a mushroom have a skirt? So maybe something like that. Move this over a little. I like the red, kind of creating a thing here. Okay, I might hold off on gluing it on, but I think I will do that. I'll just keep it here. I think I like that idea, but I might put more behind it because I'm not sure if I'm going to want to put anything else over the mushrooms. I might too. But for now, let's find some other fun bits. I know that I have some pieces in here that have some, this is part of it. This is from a ad in, not an ad, a fashion shoot. And there's kind of these, the barriers, the like traffic cone and barrier type things, the walls they put up. So that's one of them, and I think I have another piece of that. And it's just going to get real messy here because I'm going to drop everything while I'm standing with this box of messiness, delightful messiness. Some of my favorite old school ad bits. I really like to use those. Maybe I'll use one in this. Maybe. Why let any woman get ahead of you? It's so weird and great. Ooh, this one. So easy, I'm flabbergasted. I think that might be our winner. And it's possible that the piece I have in my mind, it could either be buried in here somewhere or I maybe have already used it in something. Now that I'm thinking about it. Ooh, here's a piece of that. No, not quite. So the process of figuring out what you're going to put into for collage elements, it can be very deliberate, and then sometimes it can be very just like intuitive. Something about a piece's texture, colors will stick to you. How weird is that one? I don't know, can you see that? Let me hold it up here. I don't know if it's in focus. But very weird little piece. And I love the weird stuff. It just makes me happy. Weirder the better. Okay. I think that might be, yeah, I might not have what I'm thinking of. So we'll proceed without, but I would also like to find some like textural bits that would be nice. I'll grab a few that I like out as I drop them all over the floor. So I am going to cut out what I can out of this little guy. This very narrow piece here has like a little bit of the traffic cone they put on the highway to block off the lane. And then some of that too. Every now and again you'll find weird sets of like ephemera for sale at like thrift stores or whatever. I have some where it's like old checks from the 40s. It's kind of cool. Not really sure that would fit into this, but just random things that I have. A little box of goodies. All right, let me grab my pieces. Now's where things get messy. Now, and also figuring out where. So if this was going to go over here, maybe. I think I'll put this down below that, but I'm going to cut a nice edge around the little lady's head on this side. So kind of around the shape of her hair and the back of her head, and that will work pretty well. And I'm making a mess by letting these little scraps drop on the floor for now, but I'll just have to clean it all up once the stream's done. Messy business. There's something very... I don't love cutting stuff out, but there's something very satisfying about using collage elements. Like doing collage, like the very act of doing collage can be very satisfying. It's like such a feeling of play with it. Try to get her smoothed out a bit. There's one. Start adding some things up in the top too. Also, funny, I put my my iPad screen is on my metal tabouret so that I can see it where it's also right where my palette and such is. And it's in like a keyboard case that sticks to it magnetically, and I was not thinking about that when I put it down there, and it just like suctioned right to the tabouret. I'm like, whoa, what's happening? Crazy. Okay, my hands are very sticky. I hope that it's pretty clear on camera what I'm doing, what I'm adding on. Some of the textures that I have, like this piece here, are from some old random fashion magazines that I bought in bulk. Sometimes the clothing in pages of them have interesting textures, and I'll just like cut out bits of it. This was, I think it looks like some of a sweater and some checkered pants. I kind of love those pants. I could go for some crazy checkered pants. Why not? All right. Well, it is what it is when it comes to hands getting a little crazy and messy. Another piece over here, because if the mushrooms are going to go there, and let some color come down behind him, perhaps, or come out from here. Or maybe I just continue building some stuff up here. No, I like that. Let me see if I can kind of attempt to match and cut out this curve. Her arm to where her arm meets. Okay, I think that might be close-ish. Would I put my scissors right in front of my face? Give that a try. A little too hard of a curve. Okay. Doesn't help that, you know, you're just sort of like approximating when you're drawing it on there. I think that's where the line is. And just adjust it till it's right. Covering up too much of... Okay, now I might really be messing things up. Too much. Too little, too much, too little, too much. Eventually we'll get there. Alright, we got it. Good enough anyway. Alright, one more go at the messy stuff. If it's good and wet, you have an opportunity to reposition for a second. Apologies if my head's in the way, trying to make sure I got it. One thing with the modern newsprint paper that they use for magazines is it's not the sturdiest paper, so you do have to be a little careful with it. When you adhere it, it will rip pretty easily. Alright, I'm definitely going to need to wash my studio rag after this. It's so messy. Gonna need a vacuum in here too. Ugh. Oh well, good excuse. Good excuse to do it. Oh, I hate that feeling of the glue all over. Here's another fun one that I might incorporate. Snap, crackle, pop. You see these guys? They create this like weird graphic pattern because their little heads in the order like that. And they're so old school. So maybe. I think next, what I really need before I'm thinking about using some spray, but I really would need a backer behind this to protect the easel and everything else in here before I used much of spray. Well, for some of this stuff I could just put this underneath and let's see, get some inks in here. how much this yellow will show up. It should. It's kind of like a dye. I spent $1 on it. It's like for cloth, but it works great on paper too. So if I give a little spray over here, kind of just let that yellow tone carry through there. Kind of a happy accent where that drop's just coming right there. I like that. And I might do some more larger pieces of textured stuff on here. What is it, 8 o'clock? I'll probably need to dig through. I have a lot of like stacks of paper that I collect for this purpose. Some of the things aren't as exciting or interesting as the little colorful patterns, but will probably still be very useful to use. This guy here along the edge, maybe. So I try to keep in mind, like putting anything really important right up to the edge. You don't necessarily want to do that because if this piece is to get framed, you would probably lose that little quarter of inch for anything that's over there. So I might come down the side up here with that. Kind of like orange and white stripes that you see a bit. Or I might just pull them out and make it or start to overlap some things maybe. So many decisions to make. Or tear it in half. Put it down here with the fabric. I think not necessarily right away. But maybe. Okay. Let's just do it. Why not? Why not? Let's go crazy. Really need to clean the nozzle on this glue. And of course, like I said, this stuff's so fragile, this paper. I just tore it a little bit, but that's okay. I did not get enough glue on that. Alright, just sort of gently pick up the edges that aren't quite adhered down and then give it a nice coating on top and over. Get that on there, and let's do the other one too. I'm gonna push out any air bubbles that happen because this quality of this paper is so thin and crappy. Again, I need to go in and add a little bit more where it needs it. This is just like a pH neutral adhesive. It's from a brand that does a lot of Lineco. You can barely see the label anymore, but it's a brand that does a lot of like framing materials and bookbinding materials, adhesives and stuff. Tapes, adhesive, whatever. Okay. Now that spray has the effect that the watercolor does, where paper buckles a little bit while it dries. Her face and her body are quite dry now. And I'm probably at a stage where I'll mostly let her be while I work on filling this whole side with collage stuff and textures and layers. And then kind of take note as this fills in if I need to do anything else to her. And I probably will add some things that overlap with her a little bit. Like I might actually cover with the elements across here. Not that I have anything against showing nipples or boobs, but you know, just a thought that I had. So that is a possibility. All right, I think I would like some more paint elements, some things that are a little bit more translucent. My drawers of acrylic paint over here. I've got some phthalo blue, which is a fun color. The phthalos are generally a little bit more transparent. And I'm going to lay some on over here, pull it over, and then add some water into it. So I'm going to let it cover some of the drawing, but I still want the drawing to show through a little bit. So we can have some part on the edge that's going to be like thicker and more opaque. And I like to sometimes scratch into the paint with a palette knife. So it's just a slow process of building and building up layers. Some things will let's peek through, some things are going to get covered up entirely. But yeah, it's going to just be a lot of like seeing what happens, and once I put down one thing, what do I feel like I need to do to balance it somewhere else? What else maybe? I'm also going to add a little bit of a light magenta. It's a pink tone up here, and it's going to kind of mirror what's happening on the corner down there a little bit. Kind of like the little blending effect, since they're both a little wet. Pick one up and pull it right on over. And the fact that there's this like checkered pattern up here, just barely now, I might pull in some checkers or stripes as they are here, pull in some of those elements elsewhere as well. Sort of doing things and seeing what happens. All right, well, things start happening there kind of fast, which is great. let's see. Been at it for a little over an hour. Pretty much finished the watercolor side. Tentatively finished. And got a good start on layering some things here. There will be more to come. I have this little piece of like maybe it's like a pink cut glass sort of, jewelly looking, that I'm going to incorporate. Also, let there be some pink bits showing out. Oh, my mushrooms dropped. I was just going to grab those to see how it would fit around them possibly. So maybe right over here. Okay. I'm going to lay in this a little bit. And of course I got some paint on it, but it actually makes it kind of really feed into that. It's almost the same shade of pink as what I was laying down here, so you almost don't even notice that it's something different. Some oil pastels. Go around, give this guy a little bit of a almost shadow. There's Watson cat. Hey baby cat, what's up? You bored? Yeah? You come in and say hi? I don't know if the mic picks him up. He's a very conversational little guy. One of the fun things about using oil pastels on watercolor paper is once you lay them down, if you go back over it with watercolor, the oil and the pastel repels the watercolor and it kind of becomes this fun little relief area. Might need a little more glue on this piece. It's not quite lifting, but it feels weird. It might just be the way that it's overlapping with some things. Kind of coloring over a little bit of black, and this is still pretty transparent. And I picked up some of the paint. Alright, there's some kind of fun stuff going on. I'll need to balance out how dark this is right here. This little section right here is showing up as like so dark. So either I will layer some lighter things over it, but I'll also bring little pops of darker color elsewhere. So it's always adding, covering, controlling the focal point. Mostly making sure that, in the sense of not drawing your attention too much to something that is unimportant. That's kind of the main trick of it. When I put these on, so I'm thinking to add some darker blues in this area, probably 2, or greens. Maybe even down here a little bit. And that will kind of create some symmetry of it. But yeah, I might go back in with actually some just gesso, some white gesso at some point, and just let all this stuff sort of peek through in spots. Yeah, this will end up over here approximately. And we'll outline this part for a moment. So I can let some areas around her breathe a little bit, and then some areas I definitely want to be connected. Okay, so my next steps will be probably digging through finding out if I have any more collage elements that I want to include, if any more drawing parts that I'm going to add. And I will also come up with the, what do you call it? A transfer print to incorporate in here. So yes, I will think on that. Yeah, and I think this is probably not a bad place to call it for tonight. About an hour 15 we worked on this piece, and boy, look where it started and where it is now. And yes, it's still crazy. It still looks probably like some mistakes happening. Just stick with me, because it's going to pull together. So pick it back up Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Central Time. I hope you will join me for that. This should be a fun one. And yeah, really, really bring her home. And we'll do some exposure of transfer print, and I'll talk through how I do that, what I do for that. Yeah, that's always fun. Because you just don't ever know if you made it really work right or not. So yeah, fun. Okay, so that's it. I hope you have a great creative week. Thanks for spending some time with me Monday night, and getting some creative juices flowing, hopefully. Take care, and I will see you hopefully on Thursday.